There we have the players ready. Magnus with his chairs and Wesley with his trophy cabinet.
And will he add a trophy with a brain in it to the cabinet? We're going to find out. Sorry, David, you were about to jump in.
No, I was just going to say that it is a deep pawn opening. What is Magnus going to go for? Queen's Gambit. There we go. I was afraid for a moment it would be a London system. But, OK, Queen's Gambit, will it be accepted? Declined here by Wesley. He's got to do it the long way, as you mentioned there, Tanya. He's got to win this 4-game match and then a 2-game match. But first, he just needs to survive this game with black. And a draw, I think Wesley would be very happy with. It's the Catalan now.
And I want to build on the stat that Tanya said, because you made the point that Hikaru is the only one to have been in the loser's bracket to come back and win a grand final. Wesley has already done something that no one else in the tour has. He's officially, as of right now, the first player to lose in the first round and make it all the way, because Hikaru made it and won the grand final, but he didn't lose in the first round. So already Wesley having done something impressive, but can he keep his mindset and win the whole thing?
And Danny, it wasn't just the scoreline on that day one. It was also his form felt so shaky. But something switched when he got back on day two, and ever since, we've seen 2 different versions of Wesley this tournament.
Yeah, we've talked about that a lot as chess commentators. I know I've had many conversations with Robert Hess about it, where sometimes you see players start early and for whatever reason, because their back got put against the wall and maybe they got lucky and they didn't get sent home, it ends up really, really helping them be on form for the rest of the event, right? Your cage gets rattled a little bit and you wake up, and you know these guys are human. Sometimes you need something to kind of surprise you or help you smell the roses, and Wesley has gotten better with every match.
Yeah, you said it yourself, Danny. The first day was really un-Wesley-like. It was just like a different person, and definitely a wake-up call. And, OK, he has to wake up here, Wesley. His head is in his hands. He's looking down. He's trying to remember something. This last move by Magnus, as far as I'm aware, is quite rare. Wesley, so here he's using an antidote to the Catalan opening that Vladimir Kramnik first patented. And, yeah, he needs to speed up here. OK, he develops his knight. Very natural move. Thoughts on who this opening will favour? Magnus, known as an expert here.
Well, I think you mentioned it, David. I think this first game with Magnus on the white side is so important. And really, he has to avoid losing this one. I think if Wesley, doesn't get a result out of this one, it's going to be an uphill struggle with the black pieces. And I mean, looking at the position, it seems like a fairly typical position so far. White has the better centre, more pawns in the centre. He has this great Catalan bishop. This is one of the real strengths. And in theory as well, I mean, playing a move like that, Queen E1, you have to have looked at this before to play that so quickly, because it's not a completely obvious move. And, I guess still fairly even, but we'll find out soon.
But I think you're making really good points, not just about how Magnus is playing, the moves he's playing, but the fact that he's playing them so fast. Look at how much time he has. And Magnus understands that chess is a game of psychology, and he understands that some games or some results are more equal than others. And I really believe that Magnus knows how important it is for him to strike early, because no one wants Wesley So to get momentum. No one wants that. I mean, Magnus Carlsen experienced that in 2019, and he knows how good So can be. So Magnus, I think, not just wants to win, but he's playing quickly for a reason. I think he's really trying to flex a little bit of that opening prep and maybe intimidate Wesley a little bit.
Maybe there's a positional threat here, David, already. I mean, if it was White to move, White would better lock down on that backwards pawn, yeah? Oh. Potentially.
Yeah, I was looking at the other side of the board, Simon, but you're right. If, for example, black plays a very slow, like a lazy move here, just h6, for example, then you could totally lock things down, and this pawn, like you say, it's fixed forever. It can never step forward, and you're going to target it very easily along the c-file. This is maybe one threat. I'm wondering about Magnus's queen move. Of course, it's protecting this knight as well. I'm wondering if the bishop will land on a5. This is often an annoying tactic, a very thematic idea in this type of Catalan. And the big question here is as well, can black break out? There are issues with this bishop on the edge of the board. The white knight might go and just trade it off a bit later on, at least harass it. And just to point out as well, the Catalan is all about this bishop, and this bishop looks pretty good right now. Black needs to strike out in the centre or do something in order to neutralise the pressure. Already 3-4 minutes up on the clock, Magnus.
I think objectively Wesley's fine, though. I mean, the position is roughly level, and remember Wesley also played bishop h5, which got a quick response, queen e1, so they both kind of knew what they were doing. I feel like mostly, in my opinion, the critical things that are happening right now are not on the board. They might be in Wesley's head, and the fact that he's taking so much time is nerve-wracking if you're a Wesley fan.
100%. I mean, just talking about the position as well, I think it's well known that in this position from the black side, you've got to really try to play c5 at some moment. We talked about this pawn, and that must be a critical move here, maybe, and he has played it. And again, like you said, Danny, Magnus just putting on the pressure immediately, just saying, I've looked at this position, Wesley, I know what I'm doing. Do you know what you're doing? And immediately he attacks that queen with the idea that David mentioned. And this is certainly, he's showing great psychology here. I think he realises that Wesley is not such a confident player, and he's questioning that already.
Really nice multi-purpose move there by Magnus, which makes the move with the queen, which makes the move that he just played possible, also defending the knight. Now, when your opponent is blitzing out moves right out of the opening, does that have this psychological effect on you where you start feeling that, have I not prepared enough, double guessing yourself? David, how does that affect you?
Yeah, it's actually good and bad when your opponent blitzes. Firstly, if they're blitzing, it means you've played moves that they expect, which is normally kind of translated as you're playing good moves. If you play moves that the computer suggests, of course they know what to do, but it means that your moves are pretty decent too. The downside is you don't know when their preparation ends. Maybe they've gone deeper. This is now move 17. Maybe Magnus is prepared up to move 25, 30. Wesley at some point needs to throw him off, needs to try something new. So it can be scary, as you say, Tanya.
What are the chances of this being Magnus Carlsen's 2021 World Championship prep?
I actually think there's very decent chances of that. And for those who didn't follow that match, obviously him and Jan Nepomniachtchi got into a few Catalan battles, and the preparation and the games maybe shifted away from it. But I think that happens a lot with world champions, right? You prepare a ton of things, and you don't get to use all of them, but they stay in your mind, and every once in a while they have a chance to creep back into your tournaments. And I think Magnus is flexing some sort of prep because he doesn't have to play this quickly. He's doing so to sort of send a message that I know this position better than you, and you better have come prepared.
Yeah, and it's not a strategy we're used to seeing from Magnus in rapid games. Usually he's trying weird and wonderful openings and trying to surprise the opponent as early as possible. This is like ultra main line, move 18 now, still more time than he started with. And he's going for all these ideas that we mentioned, knight f4, bishop a5. It's impressive stuff. Do you think having the rest day yesterday for Magnus is a good, bad thing? Losing momentum, but having extra time to prepare for this match?
I think it's definitely a good thing. He's been playing so much chess recently. He's been on a roll, but you do need to re-energize, obviously. It's really hard to say how hard work it is playing chess. And how it can really just drain your energy. I mean, people think, it's a game of chess. It's a bit of fun. You play it by the fireplace with your dad, and it's entertaining. But no, it can be pretty torturous in a really nice way. I mean, what I say to people, it's like, can you imagine the hardest exam you've done in your life? You normally do an exam for 3 hours. You're doing this for 4 or 5 hours. You're doing it every day, and you can't let your brain slip at all. You have to. You have to be totally 100% in the zone. You can't think about anything else. You can't. It's really stressful. It's really intense, and that is a very unique thing for chess, I think, actually.
Well, and also because it's a game with high stakes, you're also dropping your adrenaline, right? It's exhausting. It is, right? And he had to do it not just once in terms of the exam, but twice yesterday against Iturrizaga and Noterbeck, of course. And so, yeah, this doesn't look like a great start. I mean, look, Magnus has more time than he started with. Wesley is about to be under half of his time remaining. And objectively, the position is still okay. We shouldn't panic because, remember, all Wesley needs to do is draw the first game with black, right? And keep himself in the match, not to lose first. But Magnus sending a message, and it's impressive right now.
Yeah, just looks disastrous from a psychological standpoint here for Wesley. We'll really have to see how tenacious he is and how focused he is, because I think most of us here, myself included, we would be panicking. I would just be frozen right now, as Wesley seems to be, just thinking, how is he going to survive this? How is he going to get Magnus for the first time thinking on his own?
Incredible speed there by Magnus Carlsen. Double the amount of time that Wesley has and more time than what he started with right now. And that last move, it is going to create an imbalance in the position, as we will see minor pieces being traded off. Wesley's bishop can't really survive for too long, which means when there is this kind of a knight and bishop trade, that we can expect critical moments and decisions to arrive. With Wesley, 6.5 minutes on the clock, that can come back to bite him.
Yeah, I mean, he's already half the time down, and Magnus is up. Magnus has more time than he started with, and obviously being the body language expert,
of course,
as you said, you can see that Wesley now is folding into his hands. His body language is a little bit slumped at this moment in time, and he's just not very happy, is he? And also, to be honest, looking at the board, it looks like it's quite a dangerous position. We see he's played another move here, but he's going to lose the bishop pair. Magnus loves having the bishop pair. Just look at White's light squared bishop. That is such a fantastic piece. I mean, you might even be able to come in and attack the rook on b7. You know, at some point, you probably don't need to do that, but it looks actually a little bit dangerous for Black as well, you know, chess-wise.
Yeah, I agree, and I want to say that I think one of the hard parts about this move, bishop d8, first of all, psychologically, this is the first moment Magnus has been thinking. So from Wesley's point of view, that makes you almost more nervous, because now it means, uh-oh, did I move away from his 2021 World Championship prep? Is he about to punish me? But I want to point out on the analysis board, David, that one of the problems with bishop d8 is you're not actually threatening to take a5. I think that position would improve White's chances, right? Because those a6 and b5 pawns are such targets, whether we play Simon's bishop b7 or not. The moment he played bishop d8, I was like, this doesn't feel good. White can play moves, I mean, like rook c1, right? Rook d1, you can build on the position. I think rook c1 would be natural, right? And what is Black doing next? How are you untangling a queen on e8 and a rook on f8, right? It's like the old lady who swallowed a fly. We got one problem after another here on the back rank, and it's hard to relieve White's pressure.
On the plus side, we know he's the former world champion at Fischer Random Chess, Wesley here. And his pieces, he definitely look like they need to be
Magnus indeed
somehow.
played rook c1.
What happened to the woman who swallowed the fly, by the way?
So what ends up happening at the end of that story,
I don't know that one.
She eats a horse.
Things
get weird on the farm.
Yeah.
Everyone's in therapy, and we're doing good.
And before things get too weird on the commentary. Wow, Danny, good call there on you with that rook moving in to target the C line. And once again, are we going to see these dynamics where Wesley perhaps overextending on the queen side, but could also leave him weakened without the light squared bishop on the board for Black?
Yeah, I mean, it's just quite tough to, you know, those queenside pawns might look quite nice from Black, but are they strong? Are they weak? I mean, here they come. Wesley's pushing them forwards, but they can just as easily be targets, because White has two pawn breaks that hits them. There's one. This is the obvious pawn break. Just trying to again, we say the nibble, the rabbit nibble. You know, just nibbling away at that structure. That's my rabbit there. And just trying to...
And here we were thinking Magnus is the goat, but he's clearly the rabbit.
He's the rabbit god goat. I don't know, like something like that.
Can nibble.
So, like,
goats nibble.
They can. Goats have got very nice beards as well, haven't they? So just I assume. But where are we going? But this is a standard move, and you know, you've got to hold on to that structure if you're Black here. As soon as it starts splitting up, it can become very dangerous. So I'm very fearful for Wesley's position here.
Yeah.
I mean, again, you pointed out the Fischer Random pieces. I'm not really liking this Fischer Random setup at the moment.
Yeah, I've got to ask a question here to everyone. Can you even see a logical move for Wesley? I don't see anything natural at all. And when you're under 5 minutes, you want kind of at least easy play, even if you're suffering objectively. I don't see anything. You're pinned, you're tied up, your piece is passive.
I'm not kidding that, I mean, depending on what happens in this match, don't want to speak too soon, but I've already made a note of an interview question for Magnus should he win. Like, was this 2021 World Championship prep? Because he has played so fast and so well. If we were to do an instant replay, this is a borderline perfect Catalan for White. Wesley, didn't really do anything wrong. You almost feel bad for him, right? But he ran up against a buzzsaw with a whole bunch of leftover prep from a couple World Championships ago, and he's down on the clock and much worse. White's bishop pair is phenomenal. The queen side is being undermined. This is tough stuff.
Yeah, and that shows how much Magnus wants this.
Yeah.
This tournament, I mean, he's already qualified for the tour finals, but he wants to win now. He wants to beat Wesley, so he's using his best openings. And normally Magnus keeps a lot secret. He saves them for big occasions, but this is one of those, clearly. And the pawns are separated, Simon.
Yeah, and Magnus still moving very quickly. I mean, he can't be in his preparation now, but he's 10 minutes up on the clock, and he's starting to use those pawns in the centre. Black's pass pawn, and this is something that often happens in the middle game in chess. You get a pass pawn, but is it strong or is it weak? And I think in this situation, it's just quite weak. It can be So, yeah, I mean, it looks bad for Wesley, I have to say, at the moment. I think, David, you made a very good point. Magnus coming with his A game here. We saw he was playing 1A6 at the start of the tournament. Now he's probably using his World Championship preparation, which he had a team prepare. So it's going to be tough, but Wesley is still in the game.
Magnus Carlsen with the better pawn structure, Wesley so low on the clock, and 2 weaknesses on the board. We were talking about how deep is the prep here, but very often when it's World Championship prep, even if it's not this exact position that Magnus has had, clearly his understanding of the Catalan and the familiarity that he has with the middle games is so high. And it feels like he's just outplaying Wesley slowly, but with every single move. And David, we've been talking about Magnus's form. And it just seems like this is the first tournament on this season that Magnus hasn't gone into a single Armageddon to get a win. Is this some of the best chess that we've seen from him?
Yeah, it feels like Magnus just this last couple of months has really perked up. I think it was, we can trace it back pretty much to Norway chess, where Magnus in the classical portion didn't win a single game. But in the Armageddons, he was winning most of them, so still decent shape rapid. But ever since that Blitz rapid tournaments, he's been racking up the victories. And yeah, this is just a masterclass so far. I think maybe if we just jump in and show a couple of things to viewers at home. We talk about the Catalan opening a lot. We talked about the Catalan bishop earlier with its nice range. It's blocked temporarily, but this is a dream, and this is textbook stuff. You want the pawn center, you want the bishop pair, you want everything, and of course, if you have weaknesses to target, we've been talking about this pawn, then later on, this is just a very easy plan for white. I agree with you, Tanya. Magnus in great form right now, and just natural moves. You can bring your rook to the center, so many tempting options. He's going to keep blitzing.
I think what you said, Tanya, is a really important point, because I think sometimes fans confuse deep prep with deep understanding. The preparation from these World Championship matches, or any high-level preparation by these guys, does go to a certain move. And sometimes there are concrete traps that your opponent might fall into. But a lot of it is to reach a goal. And then they spend a lot of time playing those positions. They get training games in those pawn structures and with the middle game ideas. So they tend to then know that position much better than their opponent. So at this point, it may not be relevant whether Magnus has specific moves from here on out. The time is indicative. At one point, the time was indicative of him having all the moves, right? He had more time than he started with. He was borderline pre-moving, right? But now the time is indicative that he understands the position better, that he knows he has an advantage, and he knows what the ideas are, right? And a lot of times, that's a really good lesson for people in order to develop into chess mastery. You can't memorize all moves in chess, but you can memorize the formations, the ideas, the types of tactics that occur in common pawn structures, etc. So Magnus is just all over this game, a short way of saying it.
And I think one of those moments which shows his understanding in this position, Simon, was when he moved that queen from c1 to e1. Because it set up so many ideas in the position for white. The ability for the knight to retreat and then eventually go on to trade black's bishop. The ability for white's bishop to move forward and put the black queen in an uncomfortable spot. And I think queen e1 was quite the star move out of the opening.
100%. And I think that was definitely in preparation. You know, he played this move, but he also, as Danny has been saying, had a plan in mind when he played this. And it's probably a plan that he's looked at with his seconds. I'm sure this is some deep preparation, and he knows what kind of structure to move into. I mean, this is so important, I think, for many people maybe watching this who love chess. It's like, OK, you play the opening, but you've really got to know what you're trying to do in the middle game. You know, not just memorising the moves, but what kind of pawn structure do you want? Where should your pieces go? What kind of pawn structure are you trying to stop your opponent getting? And it's amazing that not many actually lower-rated players think in this way, and that's an immediate way to improve your standard, and you can see that from this. And saying all that, you know, Wesley is in the game. He's not material down. He's kind of solid. I say kind of solid because I can see there's something happening in the centre at some point, but at the moment he's okay. And Magnus now having his first think, which again, anything that can give Wesley a bit of confidence is good for Wesley at this moment in time. And he just puts his rook one square forwards there, which doesn't look that challenging, David, a move like that for Wesley.
No, I agree. It doesn't look like the most kind of ambitious move here by Magnus, but the idea is to swing the other white rook across. White's rook next to the king there on f1, not doing too much. And actually, Magnus decided maybe it wasn't kind of the best square to just centralize it there. He's keeping his options open. And okay, Wesley used the time that Magnus was thinking there to play knight to a4. Pressure on white's bishop. We've talked about how that black pawn on c4 is isolated, weak. First step was to blockade it. How to get it now? That's the big question for Magnus. What's the next step?
Yeah, and David, can you also break down what are the strategic decisive factors in this position that the players can try to fight for? We've been talking about Magnus having this great opening, understanding, he's done everything right. But for black as well, there are things that Wesley's got, trumps that he's got. So what do you think is going to be the development and the factors that are going to come into play in the next few moves?
Yeah, to me, Tanya, at the moment, it looks like it's all about this pawn. If Wesley can keep it alive, then later on it is actually a passed pawn. If this blockade on c3 is broken, then the pawn might just march down to victory. But if Magnus can corral this pawn somehow, and it does look weak on a dart square, then at least he has the safety net of going a pawn up. And I would start potentially with just the move rook to c1, maybe rook to b1 if you want an open file. The whole idea is, yes, you might part with the bishop pair, but now your pawn might just drop on c4. Another natural move, to me at least on first sight, would be to bring the knight forward, going for this pawn. But as you mentioned there, strategically, Wesley, he just has to keep this one alive. And we've been talking about those Fischer random pieces on the back rank. The queen, actually, for the first time in the game, has a natural way out off the back rank. And this rook, if the queen moves, will centralize. And there we go. Magnus does show the point behind his last move, lifting the rook up last turn to swing his rook across with rook to b1 there. And, OK, open file, preventing the black queen from using that b5 post. Yeah, it feels like Magnus, he wants to develop, but he's also trying to prevent Wesley's ideas in the meantime. I like this multi-purpose move, rook b1.
I think one of the things you have to look to do in a position like this when you're worse, like Wesley, is we keep focused on the pawn, right? We call it active defense, right? Or you make a defensive sacrifice. I think Wesley's ideal scenario is that somehow he loses that c-pawn, but he gets compensation. And the reason I'm focused on that is the c4 pawn is under fire, right, by the white knight. And that prevents, by the black knight. That prevents white from taking twice on c4. You lose the pawn. And if there's some world where this black queen can get to a4 and you can start to get some counterplay, right? I was even wondering if there's an idea that you go rook b8, and you lose the c-pawn, but in exchange, you get the b file, right? Not right now, but I'm pointing out that, especially when you're about to be under 2 minutes, and you don't want to be just grinded down in a worse position, that you have to look for active chances, right? You have to look for an opportunity to make it tricky. And so sometimes you look to give up your biggest weakness on the board, and if your opponent takes it prematurely, you end up getting some form of counterplay or compensation they didn't see coming. Now, unfortunately, Magnus has been called the mini Karpov, right? Karpov was famous, again, for never taking your weaknesses until you were begging him to, right? Because he just really, the boa constrictor we talked about, right? So I don't think Magnus is going to fall for that, but I still think that the practical idea of Wesley looking to get some chances on the b file against that e4 pawn, maybe queen a4, these are the moves we have to look for. And okay.
Commentator's curse. Well, I guess he's going to win a pawn this way because the pawn on a6. But I was thinking this. It does look a bit strange, doesn't it, to grab this one? You know.
Maybe it works though, because
maybe it does work. Maybe it just wins a pawn.
I think I guess we have to go back to the analysis. If you take twice and play knight takes e4, there's also knight e5 right away, which is part of the problem. Is you just instantly, now that I'm seeing it, you attack the queen and the knight. But, okay, let's stay with this, because Magnus won the pawn, and maybe black plays...
You're seeing this happen.
Oh, wait, it's happening.
He takes it. And if white does jump with the knight, black will be forced to bring up the queen to d5, offer a trade, defend the knight. Will Magnus get greedy with the a-pawn, pick that up immediately, or jump in with the knight? What would be your choice here, David?
I would at first calculate this knight jump just because the potential rewards, the potential profit is you might win a piece or you might immediately force black into an awkward pin. But if this doesn't work out, your move there, Tanya, defending everything here, queen d5, then I might switch to just grabbing the pawn, being greedy, at least putting something in the bank for later. I think that's how players calculate at the top level. In this position, white has two very tempting moves. Queen takes pawn, you're a safe pawn up, the game goes on. Or there's something even more direct, even more ambitious and forcing, and that's where the players start their calculations. So I think Magnus is looking at knight e5. If he finds nothing else, then he'll take the pawn and the game will go on.
It's funny, though, because even though Magnus went for this, and we'll assume that it'll work because he's the greatest chess player of all time, I do think Wesley is breathing a little bit of a sigh of relief here, because we now have a new dynamic on the board, which is the opposite code bishops, right? And if you can get a blockade, you can hold positions where you're down sometimes even 2 pawns, with an obstacle bishop endgame. So obviously that A pawn is going to be a problem. And when you have a bishop on a long diagonal with an A pawn running, it's not your favorite position. At the same time, I don't think it's over yet for Wesley, and what a hold this would be. If Magnus doesn't win this game, that's a huge win for Wesley.
Yeah. It's not over yet, but again, it comes down to that 17th piece as well, right?
Yeah.
Wesley with just a minute and a half on the clock. Simon, how much of a challenge is it not just having a minute and a half in this complicated position, but playing Magnus with that amount of time in this position?
Well, it's hard enough just having a minute and a half at any stage in your life, especially as you get older, like me. But it's tricky. But I mean, there are. I don't know. I was just thinking, like stats-wise, what are the chances that Wesley's going to hold this? I think it's a 2-result game. I don't think he can win. So will he hold this or will he lose? And I'm thinking probably better chances he's going to draw this. That's what I would go for, because of the opposite coloured bishops. And OK, we're going to see a forced variation here. Actually, this is quite interesting because now Magnus not grabbing that pawn, not trying to exchange queens, but keeping pieces on the board and keeping more pressure. But it's, I don't know, it seems like Wesley is still OK, just about. It hasn't got much worse for him, which is good because pieces are coming off the board. But he has to move quickly, which is also not good.
Well, when you're... OK, Magnus has been great. Magnus clearly brought some prep to the table. We'll find out if it was from the World Championship. But when you're a player like Wesley, you've been here before. You've run up against great prep, and you've been down on the clock before. So you have to keep your wits about you. And if all you can do is hold, but you manage to do so, you've put this match on a great trajectory. Because holding with black already is a good result. Holding with black when you were maybe much worse and up against World Championship prep, if that's the case, would be, again, just a psychologically massive win for Wesley. Now there's rook a8. Is there queen takes d4? I don't know. But even if black loses the e6 pawn, if you manage to get the a pawn, you have really great drawing chances in an obstacle bishop endgame. And so Wesley is looking up.
G6?
We have a move on the live board that doesn't look like it's good.
It looked like your move, Danny, so natural. Bring your rook to a8, just kick the queen away, win the pawn behind it. But he takes a timeout, Wesley. G6. Yeah, right. That is slow. It smells of something dodgy here. It feels like you give white an extra move, and the evaluation bar confirms this. What is the punishment?
I think that's just nerves. I mean, it also weakens the black king. I know the black king gets an escape square, but it's so slow in a position like this.
Tanya, we see there the engine suggestions.
Yeah, I was just thinking the rook can jump into the game, and this could be big trouble. When you push pawns, you weaken your own king. And with the 7th rank open, David, this could end badly very soon for Wesley.
Very quickly, we see the engine gives this almost +6 for white, and you're hitting a bishop. I think it's just the fact that black isn't ready to deal with the pressure. For example, here, I'm just going to take off this knight just to get rid of any potential tricks, and I'm already seeing knight jumps maybe into d7. I'm seeing, whoa. Is this queen? Oh, it's nearly trapped. I was going to say, I think I trapped it, but the black queen can run out to a8.
But then e6 is just game over.
Almost
completely game over.
But why did he play g6? Let's go back. I mean, I was literally just talking about rook a8 and the drawing chances increase, and I'm like mind blown here. Like, what did he?
Is that a panic move, Danny?
I mean, he must have seen a ghost. Yeah, rook a8 was phenomenal. I mean, let's put it on the board instead of g6, David. The engines had it. Like, the most logical thing to do was to put the rook on a8 and to win the a2 pawn. What did he see? Where is the ghost that he saw here? Like, was it queen b7?
Maybe it's queen c6, possibly. I mean...
Queen b7 hits the bishop, so maybe he was...
But even if you just move it somewhere...
Yeah, well, there's queen f7 check, so I get a little nervous, but...
Maybe this is what he was scared of, some checks here. But either way, it feels like he needed to just evict this queen. It's so powerful, as we were saying, in this variation. In all variations, this pawn is just going to drop off. And now, just to show, the computer thinks that white is winning after 3 different moves. We've seen this one, rook b7, super powerful, conquering the 7th rank, 7th heaven there for the rook. Also, the computer thinks simply pushing the pawn is strong. And also a knight jump, which is quite tempting, hitting this loose piece.
I mean, rook b7 seems so natural. And there was actually a checkmate in that last line you showed, David, which was quite nice, just to show some dangers in this position. So you attack the bishop. If the bishop moves, you come to d7. And I think the queen only has 1 square. And, oh, maybe it's not checkmate, but it's very close. You take on e6. And then after the king moves, well, you have many ways to win a lot of material. I forgot the f pawn was there. I was thinking knight takes g6.
Knight f7 is good enough, though.
Yeah, knight f7 just wins immediately. And you're picking up everything. There's no counterplay for Black as well. Black needs a couple of moves to gain any kind of counterplay in this position. So if Rook B7 is played, I just don't see how Wesley has any chance of surviving. And Magnus doing the right thing here. He's played very quickly, but he smells that there's something here. He realizes that G6 is a very nervous move, and he's now spending that time. And this is what you should do in chess. You should make sure in critical moments you tank some time. That's what your time's for. And you only get maybe, let's say, 3 or 4 critical moments in one game of chess. And he's doing precisely the right thing here, just finding the way to proceed. I'd be amazed if he doesn't play Rook B7. I mean, it is so normal to play such a move here. Attack, Rook to the 7th rank.
But the good news for Magnus is it's not the only move that keeps a big advantage in the position. Whatever he does, he needs to take a decision quickly. He's under 2 minutes now, so the clock advantage is dwindling away there. Magnus having a big think. Will he find the critical move that gives him a big advantage? Or the other moves that we see on our screen that still keep majority of it? And he goes for one that doesn't.
He plays Rook B5. Oh, my gosh.
Is he back in, Wesley? So Magnus has calculated a lot of
Magnus
variation.
calculate now?
Wow.
Is there a flaw to this, though? Suddenly Black is threatening a nasty checkmate in 2. Black's queen is attacking the F2 pawn.
Magnus is leaning in.
Did he mess this up?
Maybe surprised by something at the end of this line. Leaning in now suggests that he doesn't have any more follow-ups, right? He doesn't have another move here, and
Shocking.
Black is threatening to take F2.
I mean, that is amazing, actually. I mean, like, this was not a very long combination, and he's now tanking time. Maybe he just didn't consider this move pawn takes. Maybe he just thought pawn takes doesn't work, and Wesley So now has many perpetual check ideas with his queen, and his queen and rook are very active. You can't take the bishop in order to win. This is quite remarkable, and if Wesley holds this game, wow, you're going to have to say that he's going to be favourite, because it's a complete Houdini act to save this one. And this check, the king just moves.
And Magnus reacts there. He knows that he's messed up a big advantage. David, did he miss this resource of Black just stepping up with the king?
Yeah, I'm not sure what he's missed, Tanya, but it's something big, because this position looks totally healthy for Black. Magnus now, he needs to pull the brake. There we go. It's forcing the queens off the board. But I think what he might have missed as well is that Black can block this check with his bishop. And suddenly Black's pieces are active. And yeah, Magnus, it's so strange. He sensed the moment. He knew there was something direct, but he tried to force it in the wrong way. And yeah, we rarely see him blunder like this. Now he's just got to go into reverse gear, get the queens off and bail out with a draw.
We really can't understate how huge this is if Wesley So holds this game.
Yeah.
Not only drawing with Black, but again, he was under immense pressure, preparation, down almost 9 minutes on the clock at one point, has been living under the 2-minute marker here for quite a while. So again, it's not over yet, but if Wesley So holds this game, we say grab your popcorn yesterday, buckle up everyone, welcome to the weekend, because it might be starting with a bang here.
Well, it's like what Wesley said. Wesley, in the interview, said yesterday, well, look, Magnus is a brilliant player, one of the best players ever, but he's human. He is human, and he makes mistakes. He's not a robot. He's not a computer. And Wesley now activating his rook, aiming at that pawn. And if he can win that pawn, and I think he might do, even if you get 3 pawns versus 2 on the king side, an extra pawn for white, it should be a draw with accurate play. But saying that, you are playing the best endgame player of all time. So a bit of work to do still in this position to oh, hello.
And now just seconds on the clock, and Wesley blunders with 3 seconds. He walks into a pin.
What happened there?
And the rook can defend it with a king pawn ending is lost. And that is it. Wesley resigns after saving a difficult position. Magnus Carlsen takes the lead in their grand final first set.